All right, so why are we here today? We're going to be talking to you about our Equifax journey, our guide to human risk management. I am Yinka Badmus, Vice President, Security Awareness, Strategy and Engagement here at Equifax. And I'm a driver of human risk management strategy across Equifax globally. Along with me today would be Ronny Mejia. He is our Data Analytics and Technical Operations Manager, and we'll be hearing from him later on in the presentation. So welcome. All right. I want to start with kind of talking you through what we hope that you'll get out of this presentation. So one, we're hoping that you'll leverage our awareness roadmap as a guide for your human risk management strategy. We're also hoping that you'll be able to apply lessons learned from Equifax on how to combat engagement and cultural issues. 3, understand the Equifax model that we use to identify root causes and risk that we then use to develop solutions and treatments and be able to kind of leverage that for your organizations. 4, use Equifax implementation actions as a guide for your organization. And finally, 5, leverage supplemental resources that we provided for you at the end of the presentation. And it'll give you some ideas how to improve your program. All right, so to begin this story, we're going to kind of begin with the end, right? And beginning with the end in mind. As we embarked on our journey, we really leaned into Stephen Covey's second habit of highly effective people. Many of you will be familiar with the term beginning with the end in mind. We needed to really hone in on our end goal. At the end of the day, what advancements, improvements, maturation do we want to see operationalized within the Equifax environment? And so we asked ourselves a couple of questions. 1, how do we definitively know that our awareness programs are actually improving organizational resilience? And 2, are we providing easy to use solutions to our workforce to enable them to make more secure decisions on a day-to-day basis? So ultimately, at the end of the day, what does this mean for Equifax? For us, it's empowering our workforce with self-service resources that enable them to make secure decisions on a day-to-day basis. And more importantly, provide us, the security awareness practitioners, the ability to measure behavioral improvements. So I'm going to stop for a minute. I'd really like to poll the audience. In your organization strategy for human risk management, what would you consider as the end in mind or maturation goal for your organization? So what we found was the number 1 maturation goal is to reduce risk. So, that's awesome. Followed very closely by educating and training, and then finally measuring behavior. So that said, I think that kind of brought a little bit of levity, but I wanted to kind of walk us through for the next couple of minutes about our maturity journey. And I'll be very frank, it was not easy. So as all of you probably know, I don't think I'm telling any company secrets here, we had a big wake-up call, and it was brutal. In 2017, Equifax experienced one of the most consequential data breaches in history. It was not fun, but all hands on deck, we began a transformation. And what changed since 2017? Everything, from our technology stack to driving a cultural change and a shift in how employees perceive security and how they execute security on a day-to-day basis. We had a lot of remediation efforts underway. You can imagine how difficult that must have been. But ultimately, at the end of the day, in 2019, we achieved at least regulatory remediation compliance for our information security program. So that was a huge milestone. But then we were left with what happens next. That began our journey on workforce engagement. We had this concept or tagline that we say, we are security. The concept being that it takes all of us to keep Equifax secure and to drive a security first culture. That meant skin in the game for our employees, tying employee annual incentives to their performance, providing workforce visibility into their own security posture with clear actions on how they can improve. It meant customizing our awareness, education, and training with behavior and risk-based training. It also meant enabling our workforce with resources and tools such as a chatbot and knowledge repositories, support channels to help them do a better job of being secure. So where does that lead us? What's in our future? First, it's an intelligent human risk management program that uses key data insights to predict and highlight risk before an employee succumbs to a vulnerability. So that's where we're going. We haven't quite made it there yet, but we're definitely on our way. So what is human risk management for us? What does it mean to us at our core? And for us, it's anticipating human vulnerabilities by empowering our workforce with knowledge and the tools to increase resilience. We're also about building muscle memory. So for employees, it means enabling them to take right actions every single time a possible or real threat is presented, whether it's a simulation or it's an actual attack. So with that, I'm going to stop here and hand over to Ronny Mejia, who will walk you through our human risk management roadmap. Ronny?
Thank you, Yinka. I'm happy to be here. So now that we already talked a little bit about what human risk management is, this is the way, or we are going to propose the way we handle it by dividing it in 3 different stages. The first one is the exploration phase. On this exploration phase, we have to go over a lot of things. We have to start with doing a risk analysis to identify control owners, operators, and stakeholders. We got to know what the long and short-term goals will be, what the expectations are. And as we are talking about human risk management, we got to know about human risk and what the pain points are for them. We had also to map resources, what data, tools, what resources do we have available. We have to go over the corporate policies. Are those outdated? Do we have any? The technical requirements, the regulations, guidelines. We have to go over as well as the standardization on control frameworks. Are we going to be using NIST? Are we going to be using a different one? Then we get into this gap analysis section, in which we have to go over the corporate requirements versus the workforce awareness and security culture enablement. And when we start getting deep into knowing our audience, our people, we start getting more and more comments about like, why should I care? What is there for me? So we realize that we need to start empowering our workforce individually. We receive comments like, I'm too embarrassed, I am too busy. So immediately we knew that we have to know our workforce and their values. And we got to start by building trust and transparency, for they can trust and believe what we are saying to them. So basically, it sums up to a balancing act in which we have to go to and make sure that we are embedding security best practices in our workforce DNA. After we can complete this first section, we start by framing or defining what will be the next stage. And we started by defining our security first culture. And we cannot start creating actions without having all the information available. In the first section, we go and try to find out the information about this, the structure, what we have available from the management point of view. But then we need to go and start getting the information from what exactly is happening in the building, what exactly is happening in our corporation, about security incidents. Go ahead and talk with the Cybersecurity Operations Center, get information about the audit findings, get a relationship with the cyber intelligence team. And we find out after all these investigations and getting this data that, well, the risks are different for every single section, every single department. So we went to a risk-based learning profiles point of view, in which we need to define user personas. Not all roles have the same risk. Not all the people learn the same way. We have cultural differences, language differences. And then we have to also go ahead and prioritize the audience. Target high-risk jobs with elevate access to sensitive data, personalized learning based on behavioral performances. All those kind of things are the ones that we have to take in consideration. And after doing this review, this analysis, we came up with these 5 pillars strategy, in which the first one, that is the workforce empowerment, is in Equifax, we believe that knowledge drives security behaviors. So we start creating and providing tools to our workforce to make smart decisions, providing them with the tools like chatbots, knowledge hubs, support channels, so they can be confident that we have their backs and they know what they are doing by the time that by something happens. In the second pillar, we have the continuous education. In the continuous education, we need to figure out what they need to learn. Either is a compliance training, an annual security training, is it the role-based education to be prepared for a BEC attack? We have to take all this in consideration and create the content accordingly. Now, in the third pillar, we have continuous engagement. I cannot stress more on this one, because engagement is basically the foundations of everything we have in security awareness. We need to make them feel part of it so they can actually be an active member of the security awareness team. In this case, we have to make them sure that they are feeling as part of the family. And security is not something that's just happening at work. It happens at your home as well. So thinking on that, we start creating communications or campaigns around how to be safe at home or while we were working at home, how to be safe while you are traveling, while you're on vacations, because we know those are the things that will mark the difference when you are trying to put security in practice. That leads me to continuous training, our fourth pillar. Is you, by knowing the information, will be very difficult if you just don't practice it. It's about building muscle around the knowledge that you just acquired. If we just give you the information, you might forget it in a week, 2 weeks, in a month. So we need to make sure that we are providing you with actions, with trainings, with exercises in which you can put in practice what you have learned. Phishing simulations, vision, smishing, physical security simulation, all those fall into this continuous training pillar. Now we get to the final one, that is measurement. Measurement is not just about providing numbers to our upper management. Measurement is about how do we know that they are doing it right? We cannot expect just to provide the information and hope that they know what they are doing. If we don't provide guidance on the actions that they've taken, if they don't know if the actions that they are taking are right or wrong, this will demotivate the people. So we need to make sure that we are aligning our measurement and provide transparency to everything we are doing. So we have trust and we have the approval from upper management, and then we have this validation from the audience that we have, our workforce, that at the end is the one that we need the buy-in of. At the end of this framing section, after defining our first security culture, we start executing it. To start executing this phase, we started by implementing specific actions. We started with identity. We had to create something they can relate with. Everything is all about building trust and authority around new security awareness program. We need to come up with something that they will be able to easily recognize that is coming from us. Either it's a communication, a logo, a design, colors. They need to know by the time they get some things on your email that is from us, they know what they will do with it. They know what actions, what level of importance it is. So building this identity is crucial for the success of the program. Now we jump to the second action, that is defining the audience. We started by including risk clusters like new hires, mergers and acquisitions, testing groups. We need to definitely start testing and make sure that we fail quickly so we can actually modify the things that needs to be modified before sending it globally. On the third action, we have the message. We have to define the communications approach, the voice, the tone, what message will be delivered. And the message gotta be clear and gotta be inclusive, like security first, or all in for security, or security is in your DNA. I mean, gotta be a straightforward message that everyone's get and that everyone feels that they are part of it. Timing is really important as well. Identify what will be the right time to send a message. In our case, was crucial. We definitely were not able to launch it right after the breach because that was a sensitive moment for the entire corporation. So we have to wait and we have to evaluate the sentiment of in the organization when they are feeling more comfortable to start embedding new practices, to jumping out from something that affects all of us to something that will modify the way we see security nowadays. And finally, frequency. Either is an annual training, a monthly communication. We need to make sure that we are providing this frequency in every single action that we're providing. If we come up with a weekly communications just for the sake of providing new weekly communications, and they don't feel value on it, it will fall into the spam email. So how the frequency will be really important on, well, how often can I do this without not falling into being noisy or just providing trash on what that I provide. By the end of these implementation actions, we start asking us, or we receive a lot of feedback from our workforce about barriers to secure behavior. So I just want to pause here and poll the audience about barriers. What is the biggest barrier to secure behavior in your organization? I see that two top options that is existing organizational and data silos and lack of resources. And that is really funny. I mean, this is something that we all experience. You are not alone there. So in this moment, I will pass along to Yinka to continue with the presentation. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ronny. Thank you so much, Ronny. All right, we're gonna keep this moving. So let's delve into the last part of our presentation. I'm going to talk to you about the roadblocks that we, Equifax, faced on our journey. And maybe you might also find some similarities there for you as well. And maybe take a lesson learned from one or two of these roadblocks that we faced. The very first roadblock that we faced was generic training. I'm sure all of you would not be a stranger to this, but we inherited quite a number of out-of-the-box generic training that did not reflect Equifax corporate culture, did not represent unique technology stack or our business. So that was a huge barrier. Second was language. Equifax operates in over 28 countries. And so therefore we had a lot of our training material and courseware in English. We had individuals that it just did not resonate. So lack of language parity in our communication and training in the past had led to poor absorption and adoption. People just didn't feel like it applied to them. Our third roadblock was culture. We were not customizing our content to account for cultural differences and variances and local specifics. So for example, phishing tactics, they tend to be localized. We were focused so heavily on what was happening in the US that we were missing phishing tactic nuances that were happening in Australia or happening in Spain or in Costa Rica. So we had to fix that, and we had to fix that quickly. Another example of a roadblock related to culture was, how do our Spanish speaking or French speaking colleagues perceive a particular communication, right? So we had to be sensitive to that. Another barrier was risk analysis, taking actions without really fully understanding the root cause. Led to poor results. We weren't providing the right treatments because we really didn't understand the problem. Another roadblock was security awareness practitioner visibility. So Ronny and myself, what were we able to decipher against our human risk behavior? So the inability to glean insights on the behaviors that our workforce was executing day to day impacted effective treatment. So we had to fix that. Another roadblock was individual security posture visibility. You cannot expect the workforce behavior to improve if you don't tell them what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. So we very quickly had to identify opportunities and ways to provide our workforce with visibility into their own security posture. Here at Equifax, we use Elevate, the security snapshot. And that's been very beneficial for us. And then finally, data. Data is a huge, huge roadblock, guys. We had problems with data collection, data curation, data fidelity, access to data, data silos. We had to break all of those down. And data could actually definitely lead to hinder a successful program. So I wanted to talk to you about a real case study for the purposes of this presentation that culminates our journey in action and showcases how we obtain quantifiable measurements on workforce behavioral change on a particular issue. So how did we start? We got a reported issue. Our finance organization had been the target of a successful business email compromise incident. Successful. So that was bad. But then we used that as an opportunity to kind of put our program into action. Very quickly, we put in place a phishing simulation, leveraging the tactics, the TTPs from that particular incident as a baseline to kind of see where our workforce fell in terms of, how they fell for the click, why were they susceptible, and those types of things. We then did a really deep root cause analysis to understand what really caused the susceptibility, And what came out of that root cause analysis was a lack of awareness, a very clear lack of awareness, and then also just plainly not following protocol, right? So we knew we had some things that we needed to focus and target in our training. And that led to the very fourth box on the top. So that training focused on the root cause issues that we had identified. So again, not training to be training, but training focused on issues that we identified to be key problems and finding ways to combat them through the training. So customized, personalized training that we developed in-house. After the training, it was a mandatory period. The training had to occur. We did a knowledge test. We wanted to clearly understand the absorption rate. How well did people absorb the training? After the knowledge test, we also then did a post-training BEC phishing simulation, again, using very similar tactics to see if, okay, now that you've done the training, you got an 80% or a 90% on the knowledge test. Let's see your knowledge in action. Let's see how well you're able to identify the phishing attack now that you've had this training. Post that, we then did a survey to our learners to measure their confidence level. So it's a very easy survey. We just asked, now that you've been trained, as a result of this training and the new skills that you've acquired, how confident are you that you'll be able to identify this type of a phishing simulation going forward? And that gave us some very useful information and data. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we were able to do some comparative metrics. We knew we had an issue, we knew we had an incident. We had done a baseline phishing simulation. So right out the gate, right after the incident, we knew what the baseline click rate was, what the baseline reporting rate was. Afterwards, we did the training. We knew, how much of our workforce population, tested at 80% or above or lower. We were then able to take the data from the post-training business email compromise phishing simulation to map it against that to see, okay, between the first baseline and now, what are our click rates and report rates and susceptibility rates looking like? And we were able to put that all together to kind of define a picture. And we communicated those insights to management. So what were the results? Over 2,500 finance employees were trained in 2 mandatory training windows over 12 months. So that's a lot of people within an organization. But the results were stellar. We had a 3-point decrease in click rate and a plus 28% point increase in the report rate. So when you break that down to numbers, we had 1,400 finance employees that detected and reported the simulations in the post-training business email compromise phishing simulation. When you talk about muscle memory, it doesn't get any better than that. So this is just a way to kind of showcase how we've been able to take all the things that Ronny talked about earlier and what I kind of led you into in the beginning of the presentation to actually see it in action in a quantifiable way. So before we go, before you go. I wanted to remind you of a couple of key things that we've learned along the way that will hopefully help you in your journey. Number one, test new initiatives with small groups. Just think agile, think iterative deployments, right? Test small increments with small groups of people, get the feedback, and then kind of reiterate and improve along the way. Two, don't worry about making mistakes. You want mistakes. Fail forward quickly, right? You don't want to waste effort and energy on something that you think is fantastic and falls flat with the workforce, right? But then also listen. You really need to kind of listen to the feedback that you're getting and be open to the feedback that you get. You'd be surprised, right? What you think might be amazing just does not go very well with the workforce. So just bear that in mind. Number three, get executive sponsorship. It's really important. The message from the top that cascades downwards is really, really critical. So very early, engage your executive management, make them aware of what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, give them some insight as to how you're going to measure yourself along the way so that they can see how effective you are as time goes on. Number four, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of resources within your organization, whether it be regional expertise, subject matter experts, champions, get buy-in because they will help you proliferate your message. So really important to ask for help and to get engagement across the corporation. If you can't measure it, forget it, right? It's so important that at the very beginnings, when you're defining a program or a campaign or a communication, that you identify very early how you will measure if it was effective or successful. So identifying key performance indicators early helps you to definitely measure how well you did at the back end. And if you can't measure it, then there's just really no point. Several times, within my team, we've come up with an idea when we start to talk about key performance indicators, how we measure we're successful. It's like, well, it's just not really, you can't really measure it, or we don't feel like we have strong enough measurements. We end up canning it. No matter how much we love the idea, it's really about measurements. 6, communicate. Ronny talked earlier about transparency, building trust and authority in security awareness message and organization so that when we say something, there's fidelity in our data, there's fidelity in the information that we're providing and the metrics we're giving. But then also just communicating just broadly, letting people understand where you're going, what you're trying to accomplish. Message broadly across the corporation, message down, and definitely message upwards. So communication is key. 7 is to garner allies to share workload. I'm looking at poll number 2, and the top item was lack of resources, right? As barriers to security and secure behavior was lack of resources, right? And so, we all suffer this. I think somebody messaged me and said, wow, a VP, how many people do you have reporting to you? I'm like, 9. So we don't really have a large team, but we do have a large, what would I call it? A large ally base, right? So we've reached out to our executive management teams and we've told them what we're trying to accomplish. We've told them what our project roadmap is for the year. And then we've said, we're looking for people to volunteer to assist with this project and that project and the other project, right? And we say, it's a 6-week stint, or it's a 6-month stint, or it's 5 months, or whatever the case might be. And we provide input to those individuals' management that volunteer with us so that we can tell them, so that they can use that as an opportunity to boost their performance rating at the end of the year to showcase, we literally assisted with the security awarenesses program in securing risk for the company. So that's been very successful for us, having loaner resources assist with targeted projects. 8 is security teams are your allies. So build really strong partnerships with your SOC, the insider threat team, the physical security team. They should know what you're doing. They should be feeding you information, live real-time information about where they're seeing vulnerabilities, where there might be risk, where there might be incidents or patterns to help you drive your security awareness program. And then finally, identify top human risk. It's really important for you to know what your key issues are, where the key vulnerabilities may be, so that you can address them in your programmatic roadmap for the year, and make sure that you're closing out issues or combating them before they occur. So we wanted to leave you with an encouraging quote from Zig Ziglar. He's an author and statesman and motivational speaker, but it really speaks to us, and we thought we'd share that with you, that you don't have to be great to start, but you definitely have to start to be great. So get working, wherever you are on the maturity scale, just keep at it. Like us CISO likes to say, security is not a destination, it's a journey. So we're always going to be working at it. All right, so how to contact us. So we want to keep the conversation going with all of you. You can find us on LinkedIn, or during this conference on the SANS Convention hallway, Yinka, Ronny, reach out to us at any time. We'll be happy to converse with you or answer any questions that you may have. And then one more thing before we go, we added a supplemental resource. There are two for you that you can use to walk through our 3-stage framework. And then also we kind of get deeper into our cyclical awareness program model, how we think about awareness and how we think about treatments and solutions.